One of the great finds of this period is the Sutton burial ship. Now, Anglo-Saxon art tended to follow abstract styles from early Celtic art. Of course, the Celts had been the dominant force in England for a long time prior to the Romans, and that is sort of the dominant domestic art form. So it makes sense we're going to see some carryover. The most famous discovery that we see from the time is the Sutton burial ship. And what we're seeing is a Viking burial ship, or essentially a Viking burial ship, that is going to be buried in the ground. The idea of Viking burials at sea comes from one Islamic text, where a travel writer is traveling to modern-day Ukraine and sees the ship set fire and pushed out to the water. Otherwise, we tend to see burial ships that are literally buried in the ground. And this possibly belonged to a king by the name of Raywand, king of the East Angles, who died around 624 or 625. And what we see is it recalls a lot of ideas played out in Beowulf. So here we see the actual site where they find all of these materials, the Sutton burial ship, and one of those materials is going to be a purse cover. This was once connected to a mesh purse, metal mesh purse, that would have disintegrated over time, but the cover, being solid metal with this enamel overlay, is going to survive, or at least for the most part survive. It is, I should point out, also heavily restored, so there is that. And it was once filled with Byzantine coins, which tends to indicate trade between the Byzantine and England. And we don't tend to think of trade that far out, but it is happening, probably overland routes, but we could imagine sea routes as well through the Straits of Gibraltar, around Spain and France, and up into England. What we see is this purse cover decorated with garnets, which would be a semi-precious stone, very common to the period, and enamel work, in this case powdered glass mixed with pigments and then melted to fuse into a single glass structure. All those checkerboard patterns that you see, the blue and the black, would have been incredibly detail-oriented. This would have been very difficult work to create, and it shows an incredible level of skill at the time in terms of metalwork. We see something that is symmetrical. We see the interlacing, the knotwork that we tend to associate with Celtic art. And then what you see is these depictions of eagles attacking ducks. This is a symbol of power, the idea of royalty having more power than those beneath them, coming out in this motif. Again, it's visual language. It's trying to get across an abstract concept in visual terms. And so they're choosing the eagle and the duck because the duck, of course, can't fight back and needs to accept its fate, and the eagle needs to eat. And so it's going to go after the duck. And we get in this image a great detail of that checkerboard pattern and the patterning in the enamel. And it is amazing when you consider the scale of this piece. It is a fairly small purse cover, maybe 4 inches across. So a great deal of effort and skill going into the techniques used. All of the gold work is wire work that is then fused together.